How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm just kind of running around. I had like this nice thing yesterday where I met like a quite like formative medievalist for me, Carol Rockcliffe,
Uh-huh.
who's like done all this cool work on like leprosy and stuff like that. Like she's really big in kind of
Mm-hmm.
in terms of like
Mm-hmm.
health stuff, and she was so fucking nice. And it was just like a really nice experience where it's like, someone where you're just really like, about their work. And then
That's
like,
cool.
they're also lovely. So I'm very happy about Hi, Cabbage. Hello. Cabbage has been asleep all afternoon on the couch. And the minute I
Oh.
start podcasting,
Well,
she comes over to glare at me. Hi, baby.
she's like, why the fuck are you bothering me?
Yeah, she's like, what? What is this? Who are we talking to? We're talking to
Yeah.
Luke, sweetheart. We're talking to Luke. Yeah, so that's been good. And, other than that, the horrors persist, but so do I. You know?
Have you been out to any of the protests or anything over there?
Yeah. I have. So it's like basically there's something every Saturday at the moment. And so like this Saturday, it's going to
Nice.
be like a big thing because we ordinarily have like a big. So do you know what poppy season is?
Well, I mean, I know, I do. I think you mean the where all the English people wear poppies,
Yeah.
right? You don't mean, okay, yeah. I
Yeah.
was like, I figured that's what you meant, but I was like, I don't know, maybe this is some opium war shit. I don't
Yeah. Okay, so it's like this time of year, for whatever fucking reason, they like raise money for ex troops, which I've got a problem with because I'm like, oh, surely the government should simply just pay them for that or whatever. And it's
Yeah,
like,
why would,
I
yeah.
don't fucking know, bro. Like, and they're like, oh well, and I'm just like, you know what? That sounds like the government's responsibility, but whatever. But you wear you like buy these like poppies, right? And the thing that's fucked up about it is that like the poppy is supposed to be this post World War One symbol, right?
Yeah.
About being like, hey, senseless slaughter, bad. Maybe we shouldn't send, everyone into senseless killing machines for absolutely no reason at all. Anyway, obviously that meaning has been completely lost, and it's turned into like woo rah rah yay, we love the troops, and by love the troops we mean that we would like to mangle them. And so anyway, the rabid right-wing press in this country slash when just the press, that's what that is, have basically been saying that if you like, we're intentionally attempting to antagonize people who are doing Armistice Day like things this weekend by like marching for Palestinian stuff. And it's like, so calling for a ceasefire on the day that commemorates a ceasefire is bad, you see, and we should be considered like diametrically opposed to them. So anyway, I don't know. The cops are like, please don't protest, and it's like, get fucked. And then like, obviously, all the fascists are like, they just shouldn't be allowed to protest. So anyway, like, it's gonna be a spicy one this Saturday, but I encourage everyone to do what they can. I was very heartened this week to see what was going on in my hometown of Tacoma, where they're like
Yeah.
stopping one of the armaments boats from getting down, and that was lovely to see, as always. But
Yeah.
like, all we can do, I think that like literally the only thing you can do at the minute is like solidarity.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it. It's the only thing that you can do is just kind of like express that, and then otherwise it's like, it's really kind of showing up, I think, this entire thing, like the impotence that we all have really in the face of governmental decisions and how little control we actually have over that. But solidarity is important, and it makes me feel better when I'm out there. Anyway, it makes me feel less crazy. I always feel insane when I'm like looking at headlines. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it's, yeah. I mean, like, horrified by everything going on there, but like I have been heartened by much of the reactions of the people. Even in England and here in America, so like ceasefire has like 80% support amongst amongst Dems, and like 70 something percent amongst independents. It's like,
Wow. Okay.
to me, like, I mean, obviously it's horrific, but like there is something. Is everything okay?
Oh yeah. Sorry, I'm just like
Okay.
giving the cat treats while you talk.
No, you're
She's,
good.
staring intently at me. Sorry.
No, you're good. It's like I see it, and I'm just like, I'm heartened by all this because the attempts to make it like 9/11 are all there across the board. Like we're lying, we're doing like the all Arabs are Hamas or all Arabs are terrorist thing. We're doing like the whole. They got out the Bush 2 playbook. They went through the whole thing. Blah blah blah, and Americans are like, no, like we're not buying it. It does, like the amount of news and all of the media, because Fox supports Israel to the hilt too. So all the media aligned for Israel, and like the president and everything like that, and basically all of Congress. And yet people are just like, no, like I mean, Americans are the most propagandized people on the planet, but like it goes to show you that like this is something that should be like and to be honest, probably in like 2003, if this happened, like 90% support, 95% support for Israel without question. But like, it's not that anymore, and and like, I don't like to do it because it causes some problems. But like, there really does seem to be this massive, and I do mean massive, generational divide between people who are like, I don't know, like basically like 1980 is the dividing line. Yeah. People under that, and like the support for Israel for people above that and people below that is like basically flipped. And like, and this is just something where people are just like, no. And like and our media has no idea how to handle this. They don't. Yeah. They do not understand it, because like, the stories aren't working, the pity parties aren't working, the like vote scolding isn't working at all. Like Biden's numbers are so bad now that he is losing in hypothetical matchups to Ron DeSantis, who's like not even within 30 points of Trump, and Nikki Haley, who literally does not have a viable path to become the presidential nominee. Even if everybody in front of her died, like they would still find someone else. It's just like
it's a ridiculous thing to me, like that. And I mean the same thing is happening here in a different way, but it's like the thing that really blows my mind with it is like there's a lot of like there's a lot of people scolding about this, and I'm like, oh, I don't know, or like we could simply take a different position. Like Biden could literally just change his position. You know, I mean, like, I don't know. I hope he just won't run.
The scolding, I mean, if he ran today, like, he would lose to Trump. Like, he would. Even if Trump was in jail, he would lose to Trump. Yeah, and yes, you can run for president if you're in jail, just in case you don't know that. Others have done it, including most notably, the guy, the socialist from the early 1900s. What the fuck was his name? The American guy.
Debs?
Yeah, Debs.
Yeah.
Fuck, it was Debs. Yeah.
I know things.
He ran from jail. Yeah.
I could do American history.
Well, I was giving you like I was a socialist in the early 1900s. Like, oh yeah, that narrows it down.
It's one of these things where and obviously we have the same thing kind of like happening here. Only like our election is probably going to take place like this time next year, possibly next January, and it's like. So there's all this weird stuff happening in the UK because very specifically the way that they got rid of the socialist threat from our Labour Party was by calling him an anti-Semite because he supported Palestine. And they went really hard on that. Yeah. And so it's incredibly interesting because it's like, so there's this very specific line now, right? Which is like you can't express any solidarity for Palestine because that's what they accuse Jeremy Corbyn of. And and it's just supposed to be a cut and dried thing. And like the terrible fucking right wing guy that we have in charge of the Labour Party now, Keir Starmer, like did this thing where he went on like one of the radio shows and like was like, oh yeah, Israel can do whatever quote unquote she kept calling Israel she, which is creepy, wants, and like, yeah, feel free to starve children. That's chill. Like, whatever, go for it. And then everyone was like, wait, what? And like, that wasn't supposed to be like an official, Labor Party or whatever. And obviously every single Muslim person is like, well, I guess fuck you.
Yeah.
How about that? And now he's like, ethnic cleansing for some.
Yeah.
Miniature Israeli flags. It's just like, shut the fuck up, dude. And so like we're having like very specific. It's going to be interesting because it's really undermined him a lot, and we'll see what happens there. I mean, of course, nothing matters over here because like the Tories are done. They're cooked. They're done. So, but it doesn't really matter if the Labour Party are the Tories now. You see what I mean? So it's like it just there's. So it's a very kind of like. It's kind of hopeless place to be, but that's why I think it's so important, like going to all the rallies and stuff. Like one of the ones I went to the other weekend, there's like 500,000 people there.
Yeah, that's insane.
And that feels good, and it feels good to be like, and the media is losing their rag with it because they keep they keep being like, no, we told you not to do that. And everyone's like, fuck you. How about that?
Yeah.
Like, and I think it actually is a testament to, the internet's responsible for a lot of ills and a lot of misinformation. But one of the things here is that it's completely fucking impossible to keep a lid on this shit now because we can just see things, right?
Yes.
It's like we're not fed in dribs and drabs based on like what a newspaper chooses to show us. And you just see them, like the wheels are just falling off. They're like, but we're supposed to be in control of the information you get here. And it's like, well, you're not.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I think like the reason you see like some of these just like the most insane unhinged rants, like aside from people like genuinely having those opinions because they do, one of the things is that in America and England, at least since I was born, probably long before that too, support for Israel is being a good person and supporting the Jews. And opposing Israel on anything is rank anti-Semitism. And that's just what it is. And like when you're online and you can see, and like, again, so many problems with the internet and social media and everything like that, but it is fucking insane that the only place you can get actual information on what is happening, like unfiltered, is online. Like it really is. Like that is it. And like, it's like, like you come on Twitter and you see these people like arguing, and of course you have like the like pro-Israel crowd, you have the Zionists coming in and everything like that, but then you see all of these people from other countries like, no, I'm not afraid of you, I don't care, I'm not doing this, we're not bowing down, we're not doing, and like it reinforces this thing. And there's like the media just has no idea how to deal with it or what to do with this, because they're just like boomers and older Gen Xers are like, oh yeah, like Israel's the greatest thing ever, and then younger people who grew up around the internet and with more access to this info are like, no. Well, no thanks.
And it's so funny too because it's like that line, that if you don't like this Israeli government, like you're an anti-Semite. It's like, well, in the first place, that's anti-Semitic. Not all Jewish people support the state of Israel. And in the second place, it hinges on you not knowing Jewish people.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, homie, because like all of my Jewish friends are up to their elbows in like, the anti-Zionist, like decolonial theory. So like, don't fucking come out here and lecture me about all of this. And it's like, I haven't really said anything in public because like, what the fuck do I have to add? I'm just like there being like, yeah, you saw what my homie said.
Yeah.
And and that's just it. Like, it's like, I don't have anything new or original to say. It's just like, so it's like one of those things where I don't think we need more from like, the rank and file, but I do think it's quite interesting from like a historical standpoint, the fact that people have got so much better at like parsing media about this. And, it's really heartening, for those of us who lived through the Bush years and stuff to be like, hey, look, it's not working anymore. Like, it's really nice to fucking see that. And even though it's like, I swear to fucking God, I can't even look at the newspapers here. They are just like fully disgusting. But, like literally I saw, like some of the columnists here were saying that the march on Saturday that we're going to have has been organized by Hamas leaders. And I'm like, oh yeah, all the Hamas leaders who are like in London.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
They're all there.
Yeah.
They had a meeting. Yeah.
Wait, like I thought that they were all in a tunnel under a children's hospital.
No.
Oh
God.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It's, you get like, I'm not saying it'll portend good things for the future, definitely, or that, Americans are always going to make like the right choice, because that's obviously not the case. But like, it's just,
it's notable.
It is notable. And it's like, I've never seen anything like it. It's just like the difference between the differences in response in the public between 9/11 and this are like so staggering as to like literally give me pause, like to just be like, wow, I can't believe that like this is happening, like that this is happening, that this is going this way, like, because that's not how it should, like, it's not how it should work. That's not how American propaganda dictates how it should work. And I mean, for the most part of American history, that's not how it has worked. The American public is usually easily swayed by these things, but it's just like, now we're just like, no.
Yeah. And maybe we learned something from the war on terror. That like actually just like bombing the shit out of a bunch of innocent civilians when terrorists do something doesn't work. Maybe we learned. I don't know.
Who knows? Who's to say? I don't know.
Oh, anyway, you want to talk about King Arthur? What about that?
I guess we should probably do that.
Yeah, probably get onto it, I guess.
Either that, or we're just gonna have to make the cold open the whole show.
I know the whole show is just like one. Everyone is like, I thought we were doing Arthuriana. Like, no,
like we'll get there.
We're doing materialist ramblings about about the situation in the Middle East. So yeah, that's what's up. Rename the show Materialist Rambling. There you
go. That'll do it. Yeah. That'll do it. The people
yearn.
The people yearn for a podcast with a name like Materialist Rambling. Oh God. All right, yeah, let's do this. All right, 3, 2, 1. Hello, and welcome back to We're Not So Different, a podcast that's definitely not named Materialist Rambling.
Yet.
I'm Luke. That's Eleanor. You know how this goes.
That's what's up.
Today, perhaps surprisingly, we are talking about the death of Arthur. Rip King. Rip King. But before we get there, we have a question from one of our patrons, Steph, who says, Renard the Fox. That's the question. What's up with this little guy, and where can I get some stories of him now?
Okay, so in the first place, massive plug for a very good book if you want some Renard the Fox stories. It's a book called Renard the Fox. It's by Anne Louise Avery. It's a really fantastic retelling. She's a really, really talented medieval literature scholar. Absolutely brilliant. Go check it out. The deal with Renard the Fox is he's a couple of things. So he's kind of like in a Nancy type character where it's like he's like a trickster, right? Or he's like or like a Raven in Native American stories, things like that, where he's a trickster character who gets himself into scrapes because he's always scheming, but then kind of gets himself out of them because he's a silver-tongued devil. But also more particularly with Renard, he also is kind of like an everyman type of character. So he's sort of also like akin to Robin Hood. So, kind of like standing up for the little guy, against, power. and things like this. So he does kind of a little bit of both things, where he's a fun, good time guy, or it's like, I'd like to see you get out of this one, Reynard. And then he does easily, but at the same time, like in the name of justice and things. So it's quite interesting, because we do know that these stories are told at court, but they're also quite popular with regular people as well. And so one of the things that they kind of do is show that there is some kind of conscience, like among the wealthy, where they're like, yeah, I know it's bad.
Yeah.
Oops. So, but they're great fun. Sometimes they can get a little medieval and, like veer into, I don't find this rape story very funny, actually. But, the Anne Louise Avery version does a good job of, kind of grappling with these things. So I really, really can't recommend that book enough. But yeah, Reynard the Fox, absolutely. He's a boy. It's your boy. That's what's up with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Steph, thank you for the question. And if you want to ask us questions like that we will answer here, then please subscribe to the Patreon, patreon.com/WNSDpod. You get all regular episodes ad-free. You get all the bonus episodes. We're releasing one on Friday, our second episode on Castlevania Nocturne, and that will be our 50th bonus episode. So it's a lot of content. Check it out. Give us $5 a month. It'll be fun. You guys know. Yeah, you guys know the deal. Patreon.com/WNSDpod. Anyway, on to the main show. So, thus far in our series on Arthuriana, we've compiled basically all the aspects of the Arthurian legend we know today. By the year 1200, we've got our main guy Arthur, suitably magical birth, a notably tragic death, his family, his castle of Camelot, a round table, over a dozen named knights of said round table, and many others who go unnamed. We've got Merlin, a setting on the British Isles with the occasional foray into the continent. We've got the quest for the Grail, the Lancelot-Guinevere romance, Mordred, a pseudo-historical context for Arthur and his place in history, a heavily Christianized milieu, a few magic swords, more than one lady in the water, chivalric romance, and the like. You get the idea. We got the characters, a setting, tropes, well over 36 stories with their own translations and alternate retellings, and even a vague timeline of events. But even so, there's something still missing here. The fundamentals of the canon are all there, thanks in large part to Geoffrey of Monmouth's efforts in Historia Regum Britanniae, and subsequent authors were already building upon that in the early post-Galfridian era. If the Arthurian canon is a human body, then by 1200 we've got everything we need except a definitive form and substance. Sure, there's the skeletal structure, veins and arteries to pump the blood, internal organs to regulate body function, and musculature, but it's all just disembodied, like that version of Dr. Manhattan that appears in the lab before he takes his final form in Watchmen. It's missing connective tissue and skin required to give the whole thing narrative cohesion and a discernible structure. This is not to discount the French poems and most romances we discussed last time. Far from it. It's just that they're essentially one-off stories set in this fictional universe with nothing narratively tying them together. Kind of the way that Tolkien uses more than a dozen interwoven narratives from various characters to tell a story in Lord of the Rings. Well, he quite literally got the idea from what we're going to discuss today, or at least this is one of the earliest examples of such a thing. Now, you might not care about a cohesive timeline, but most people do, if only so they can understand the narrative flow of time within the universe, and the stories we're going to discuss today go a long way to prove that medieval people cared deeply about it too. Mm-hmm. We're going to finish up the Arthuriana series with a discussion of the later post-Galfridian era, including the Vulgate and Post-Vulgate cycles, and the final big entry in the medieval canon, Le Mort d'Arthur. Mm-hmm. The cycles are essentially collections of Arthurian short stories, some of which we've already covered, written as an interlaced narrative of all the characters from the stories, firmly situating them within the discernible timeline of Arthur's life and utilizing an overarching theme. In the case of the Vulgate cycle, it is chivalric romance, and in the case of the post-Vulgate cycle, it is the quest for the Holy Grail. Lastly, more than 200 years later, Thomas Malory looked out on the dozens of stories in the Arthurian canon and decided it was too scattered and fragmented even with the cycles, and thus needed a reboot. Mallory would bring together all the big stories and events that he thought were essential and rewrote them into a full narrative of Arthur's life, from his magical birth to his sorrowful death, including the heroics of the Knights of the Round Table. In doing so, the last piece of Medieval Arthuriana finally gives us the last piece we need to complete the canon, a timeline of events that can be easily followed, even if it is missing some important pieces. And wouldn't you know it, that's exactly how modern reboots of canons work today. Eleanor, let's get right into it. Let's talk about the Vulgate cycle, occasionally known as the Lancelot Grail cycle. Yep. It was written by an anonymous author or authors in Old French between 1210 and 1235 and was published in 1235. So what do we got here?
Okay, so we kind of start off here with your first history of the Grail that looks like the history of the Grail that you would kind of expect. Right, because we've had the Grail come up before. We've seen the Fisher King. We've seen stuff like that. But what is the Grail? Question mark. Right. But this is what gets us to, you know, what we sort of expect to see. So the Histoire de Saint Graal, she says in her bad French. Shout out to my boyfriend who's going to be mad about that. So this is kind of like the early history of the Holy Grail. And the way that it's presented is that it's copied out by a priest narrator from a book that was given to him by Christ, okay? So in the story, the Grail is the bowl used by Christ at the Last Supper, right? Which is what you expect it to be. That's what you expect it to be, but that's never kind of made explicit before. And so Joseph of Arimathea takes it and like uses it to collect Christ's blood at the entombment, not at the crucifixion, but at the actual entombment, right? So then Christ's death gets avenged by the Emperor Vespasian, and he kind of like casts out the high priest Caiaphas in a boat, and is like, go get fucked, get some pagans to save you from that, or whatever. And then there's like a bunch of adventures, there are a lot of wanderings, and through this, Joseph of Arimathea and his son Joseph, who becomes the first Christian bishop, convert a lot of people, but most importantly, King Avallac'h, who takes a new baptismal name, Mordrain. Okay.
Yep.
Then his brother-in-law, Nasian, who was known as Seraph before this. There's a lot of like name changing. It's all very Tolkien. Mordred kind of like goes through a lot of trials in battle, on the sea. He, you know, encounters enchanted boats that are like being rowed by Christ and the devil, right? One of these boats is Solomon's ship, which has David's crown, and Solomon's sword, which is later used by King Laban. And they're like, hey, you shouldn't use Solomon's sword. It's just on there for kicks, not to advance the plot. And there's also 3 spindles of wood that are cut from the tree that grew the fruit of knowledge that Eve took. And that like they miraculously change color from green to white to red. Okay, so that's all very cool. So the ship and all of the cool things kind of like show up in branch 4, which is like one of the later ones that we found, which is called a Quest de Saint Graal. And so basically it's like they want to go through a full inventory again. Like, okay, that's cool. They do. Meanwhile, Queen Sacynthe, who's Mordrain's wife, and the Duchess Phlegantine, who's Nason's wife, start searches because they're like, where the fuck have our husbands and sons gone? Question. And there's a bunch of adventures, a lot of swashbuckling, right? Like, you know, they meet Hippocrates, and they like make tombs for Mondrian's men, and then like part of them like die in their search. And you know, these are in varying manuscripts that we have of this, because it's like we can kind of do like comparisons of the ones we have. But anyway, eventually Bishop Joseph makes an ark to house the Grail in the Grail Chapel. He's like wearing priestly robes, and these probably have like meaning. They like go through what the meanings of the robes are. It's like, in case you don't know, right? Celebrates a big Grail mass, and Christ is all like, oh, hey, what's up? Let me help do the sacrament. That'd be chill. Like Christ shows up. So that's cool. And what's established here is that only the pure can approach the Grail. And anyone who's like transgressed and attempts to approach it is punished, right? And that includes Joseph of Arimathea's son. But it's also, an instrument of healing in particular, right? Eventually, the Grail gets taken to England by Joseph followers, and he transports all the faithful across the sea on the hem of his alb. So he's just like, everyone get on board by magical hem. That's cool. More conversions. A lot more punishments for people who shouldn't have been there. Woundings. There's lances. There's magic swords. There's the perilous seat at the Grail table. Remember we talked about this? It's like the Bene Gesserit box. Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah. And then you have, like, before the deaths of Joseph and Joseph, you kind of like have the transmission of the Grail go to Alain le Gros, who's the son of King Bran. Right. In one of the branches of the Lancelot stuff, the Grail's going to like appear again later. But this is kind of where it all gets put in place. And it ends with like Lancelot, who is then king, dying. And his severed head gets thrown into a fountain of boiling water. And his body is laid in a tomb. And it continuously bleeds and is guarded by lions. In one of the branches, the head and body are kind of discovered by his grandson, Lancelot of the Lake, and then they rescue the head and reunite it with the body. And then everyone's like, oh shit, it was Lancelot. So, yeah, it's fun.
Hey.
Yeah, like there's a lot of interesting things. So it's like, we think that there are kind of like varying influences on this from other manuscripts that are out there, but that's like the... general. So it's like a story. It's telling you what's up with the Grail. So the Grail itself really becomes a character in this. And it's got its own history. It's got its own lineage. And it's kind of like enacting on other people. Yeah.
Yeah, it moves from being just one of the complement of things the last time in the Percival story, because it was there with the spear and all that sort of stuff, to now being the thing, and it has its own special properties. It now not only does it have the backstory that of being the cup that Christ drank from, but it's magic. It heals you. You can't approach. Only the penitent man shall pass, etc.
Christ might show up. Yeah. He loves that.
That's
thing.
a good point. He loves that thing.
And,
you just got to make sure you go with the cup of the carpenter instead of the cup of
That's right.
a rich guy, because Jesus isn't going to do that.
No.
So the second part of this, the history of Merlin.
Yeah. Okay. So this is kind of adapted. We know from Robert de Boron's verse Merlin, so like a poetry version of it, and it's kind of seen as like a kind of a sequel in a way. This is like how this works off of that. Okay, so basically it comes also like with some of the stuff that we saw from the Prophete Merlini, which we've talked about before, and things like this, right? So basically in this story we have what you probably think of as the main Merlin story. So Merlin is the son of the devil and a virgin who didn't realize it kind of happened. Right. So like Merlin's dad is kind of like he's kind of like an incubus, like shows up and is all like, whoop, knocking up this chick now. So anyway, she's very shocked to kind of like be knocked up and unhappy about it. And she then endows her son, who's Merlin, with prophetic gifts.
Yeah.
So she's like, we're going to kind of like you're going to get all the prophecy and none of the evil that your dad has. Right. But it's like her virginity kind of like, and her willingness to confess means that like all the evilness was taken out of it. Right. So Merlin is super, super instrumental in, the rise of Arthur's dad, as we've talked about before, Uther Pendragon. Right. So basically, again, we have this telling of the story where he knocks up Igarn, the wife of the Duke of Tintagel, right? So basically he's like, I'm hot for that chick. Oh, look, Merlin changed me into the double of her husband so I can go knock her up. And then Merlin does. So, and then you also have the Sword in the Stone story where like when it becomes clear that Arthur is the king of Britain, he draws a sword from an anvil. This comes up repeatedly in various ones, right? And he then also, and this kind of proves that he can sit in the perilous seat, so he can put his hand in the Bene Gesserit box at the table. And then everyone goes, oh shit, this guy's definitely the King of Britain, right? And the first part of Merlin in this ends with Arthur being crowned King of Britain. Then there are like lots of, fun adventures. It's like, the gang all hangs out. And like, we kind of now refer to this bit as the Suite Vulgate de Merlin. And it's like, and this is just kind of like where they go on buddy adventures and things like that. Eventually, like there's a big battle in which Arthur triumphs. But then, he commits incest with one of his half-sisters. And thereby he fathers his son Mordred, who's going to be like, the instrument of his downfall, right? Meanwhile, Merlin kind of leads him to the Lady of the Lake, who's like, hey, do you want Excalibur? Or what, Yeah, that'd be cool. And he's like, "Hell,
do you want this magic sword?" And he's like, "Yeah, I got 10.
Yeah, give me another one. Like, I'll take that." And then basically with that, Arthur is like, he beats up the Saxons, he beats up the Romans, he beats up some dragons, he beats up the giant of Mont Saint Michel, and also the giant cat of Lausanne. Shout out to the giant cat. Who remembers the giant cat? He then marries Guinevere. And who's the daughter of King Leodegan, but whatever, that's exciting. But then there's also a secret other Guinevere who's his illegitimate daughter. Okay, so we got two Guineveres running around, and the false Guinevere kind of shows up later in one of the Lancelot branches, and tries to like usurp Guinevere's place. Which you may remember this from like the Tristan and Isolde things, where it's like we've got too many Isoldes and things running around, kind of similar. So basically, Merlin in this becomes Merlin like that we think of him. So not just like there aren't just the prophecies. It's like he is an active part of the Arthur story. And this is actually ironically where we get more Arthur stories than any other place. It's not the Knights of the Round Tables. It's like here's Arthur. And so and eventually this is all said to have been written down by Merlin's master Blaise, who writes them all down. But it's a really cool one and a lot of fun. So, if what you're looking for is like good time swashbuckling stuff, so you want the Vulgate Merlin. Yeah. So that's the good stuff. Yeah.
And then lastly here with the Vulgate cycle, you've got the Lancelot prose.
Yeah. Okay. So Lancelot prose. So this is the story of Lancelot of the Lake, who's the son of King Ban and Queen Elaine, and the grandson of the Lancelot who got his head cut off in the lions and the hay at the end of the history, right? So that's why he's often called Lancelot du Lac or Lancelot of the Lake, right? He is brought up after his father's death by the Lady of the Lake, until he's ready to become a knight and join the Round Table and, fall in love with Guinevere and do some pretty heavy cucking. But because of his love for Guinevere, he's kind of given very supreme knightly prowess, and he's the best knight in the world. And he's like the Superman of the Round Table. Like he is the one that if something goes wrong, you get Lancelot out there and he saves everything. So eventually he has to choose between being in love with Guinevere and his homie King Galaho or Hot, or I don't fucking know, who is supposed to be like, it's like a bros before hoes. Who you gonna pick thing. And Galaho is kind of responsible for getting it set up so that Lancelot and Guinevere can have sex. And but the thing is that he wants Lancelot to kind of like take over his kingdom, right? He's like, you should probably stop fucking around. Like, why don't you just nail her, get it out of your system, and then like go run your kingdom instead of hanging around Camelot all the time. So anyway, meanwhile, like for Guinevere, Lancelot kind of like, He crosses the sword bridge. Remember the sword bridge? He, wins a lot of tournaments and battles. He rides in the cart. Like they play the hits, right? And eventually he and Galahad kind of like defend Guinevere against the accusations of the false Guinevere, and Arthur's kind of repudiation of Guinevere. But I mean, like, he probably should have repudiated her, but whatever. Anyway, he gets imprisoned by Morgan. Morgan Le Fay, Arthur's sister. And the other knights don't know about it, and they're all like, "Where's Lancelot?" Right? Anyway, then we have a kind of like vague Greek tragedy here. Galahad thinks that Lancelot is dead and dies of grief. It's very kind of like Patroclus and Achilles kind of deal. Meanwhile, Lancelot manages to sleep with Hezebel, who's the Grail Maiden and the daughter of King Pelles, the Grail King, and knocks her up with Galland, who is eventually going to triumph in the Grail quest and displace Lancelot as the best knight in the world. Because, like, obviously you can't get the Grail if you're fucking the queen and also you're fucking the king's maiden daughter who's supposed to be guarding the Grail. But hey-ho, right. So anyway, while he is Morgan's prisoner, he kind of talks, he like waxes rhapsodic about having sex with Guinevere. And then like he like writes these things down. Eventually in the Mort 2, like this gets shown to King Art. Like Morgan is like, "Hey, it says here Lancelot was fucking your wife." And then they're like, "Oh shit, the rumors are true, homie." But in between here, we also have like adventures with like Gawain and Yvain and Hector and Brute and all the guys. So it's like there's all kinds of like various buddy team ups. Super super long.
Yeah.
Like so long that a lot of time it gets like turned into various subsections because it's like, okay. But it's because it's just sort of like, all right, well, here's the bits that are kind of like moving things on. It's like, here's the story of his infancy. Here's him falling in love with Guinevere. Here's him getting imprisoned. And here are like the varying, buddy comedies as it is. Right. So yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, so yeah, that's the first cycle, and in it, I think you can see a lot of what I was talking about in the intro, which is that like you have the story, you have contained in one volume the story of the Grail generally, so you get the history, and then makes the Grail important, makes the Grail magic, etc. Then you introduce Merlin, and you hear a little bit about Merlin, and then introduce Arthur, and you get this whole thing where Arthur is just doing stuff, and like Merlin is there, but it's Arthur, and you get the like the heroic quest and the daring do and all that bullshit, and then you start. But at the same time, like all of these other characters are interlocked in between it, and you get Guinevere and the fake Guinevere and all that sort of stuff. And then by the time you get to Lancelot, you just have all of these stories of the Lancelot stories and stories of other Knights of the Round Table doing these heroic things, but it is like within like a timeline, and like this is getting up, this is after Arthur's made king and has done all of his heroics and stuff, and it's before he dies. So like now you have this like you have it like kind of set in stone, and you can see like, oh, okay, now like I see that Lancelot was hanging around with Yvain and Gawain and et cetera, but Galad won't be there until later, and we don't have a Tristan yet and all that sort of stuff. So you can see that like is kind of been put into a narrative structure. You can see where it's going, even though like the part where the cucking is revealed hasn't been doesn't occur yet. And so then in quick succession you get the post-Vulgate cycle, which is another collection of short stories, and this is written by an anonymous author in Old French between 1230 and 1240, and is published in 1240. So like I guess my only question here is like, how are they like, well, that was a good 2-year run for the Lancelot cycle, but I'm tired of this chivalric bullshit. We got to do the Grail. How do you go from that so quick?
It's quite interesting, right? Because one of the big things about the Vulgate and post-Vulgate is some of it is not very different at all. And it becomes super clear that the reason that you have this kind of come out very quickly is because it sort of seems like they're saying Vulgate cycle too sexy. Like Vulgate cycle way too much and then he was really plowing the queen behind the king's back. That's bad, right? So you don't have
wow, there are some vivid descriptions of anal sex.
Gotta. So basically they're like, you gotta tone all this shit down, right? So in this, for example, the history of the Grail, almost exactly the same. Not a lot changes there. What becomes it's more sketchy. How does the Grail get to Britain? Maybe it's Joseph of Arimathea and not his son. In the Vulgate one, it's his son who brings it over. But other than that, pretty much the same. History of Merlin, pretty much the same, except that we get more of the early history of Merlin and Arthur. So there's a little bit more prequel. And some of the expanded sections are kind of about the Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. So you get the whole Arthur having sex with Morgan Le Fay and Mordred coming about as a result of it. Or Morgwise, sometimes she's called. You also kind of have the added adventures of Merlin's involvement in the Lady of the Lake giving Excalibur to Arthur, which isn't in the first Vulgate cycle. So here again, not very much. It's just kind of let's just expand this out a little. What if we have some more stuff, right? That's cool.
Yeah.
Then you get to the quest of the Grail, and this is where things change. So basically, you still get kind of here's some noteworthy knights and things like that. But instead of talking about Lancelot and stuff like that, it's your boys Galahad, Percival, and Bors. Okay. And the thing that is emphasized about this is these MFers are holy. Okay. We hear a lot about how they have strange visions and dreams, how they go visit holy hermits who give them prophecies about what it is they're going to achieve. And one of the things that happens is the other knights realize and talk about how they will not be holy enough to deal with the Grail. So, for example, you get Sir Gawain and Hector, they have a dream, and they're like, oh, this is a dream about how we're not ever going to find the Grail because we're too sinful. But they realize that 3 knights are going to eventually achieve the quest. So this is really, really different because this is about morality.
Yeah.
And what is necessary in order to be worthy to find the Grail. So it's we need to roll away. Lancelot, no one's talking about Lancelot right now, homie. You can't just go around doing that, right? And instead, it's kind of you got to talk about Galahad, you got to talk about Percival, you got to talk about Bors. They're just sitting there praying and being virgins, right? And that's what they're doing, and they are able to find the Grail. So it's really, really different because it is basically saying instead of talking about you don't get superhuman powers for banging your boss's wife, you get superhuman powers from being holy. So it's just a real change there. Yeah.
And Mort de Arthur is going to ask, why not both?
Yeah, exactly. So
what if both? Yeah. One thing I did want to say before we move on, I love that they're Joseph of Arimathea. They just pull this random not even tertiary character out of the Bible. They're oh yeah, this guy's the one who, and then he or his son took it to Britain. I'd A+. Good world. Way to use existing assets to build your...
in many ways, the Bible is the medieval MCU.
Yeah.
They're just I don't know, go in there and grab one. It's Joseph of Arimathea. Okay, cool.
Oh yeah, there he is. It's it's Ruth. We've got Ruth. Yeah, she's back.
Damn. Okay. So all right. It is quite funny, right? Eventually you get to the death of Arthur here in the post post-Vulgate. And then again, we have kind of like the clipping away and the like, we are not talking about Lancelot. We are 100% not going to talk about all the hot and heavy sex that Lancelot and Guinevere are having. That is we're shutting that down, right?
We're not going to talk about how much she moaned. Absolutely not. You know, and it's just they're just like they're jerking off while writing this. Like,
Exactly.
I fucking hate Lancelot.
And it's like, instead, there is just a lot more about the quests for the Holy Grail. It's like, here's a quest, here's a quest. How about, what about a questing beast? What about this? What about that? You know, like kind of a deal, right? And so basically, again, it's the same thing about, it's like, we are not talking about courtly love. We are not talking about having an affair with your boss's wife. We are talking about faith. Yeah. And this is about spirituality. So, you know, real honk shoe, me hours. But basically, so like Lancelot is basically gone. So they're just like, nope. The censor said it was too sexy. Yeah, it's just like Arthur definitely was not getting cucked. Did he have an illegitimate child? Sure. Who amongst us? But
totally.
But his wife was not stepping out on him. Like, don't tell anyone that I've been getting cucked. You know, like
and that he fucked his sister.
Yeah, okay.
You know,
don't do that.
Tell anyone. Yeah.
But it's very funny because we have kind of like a Castilian and Portuguese sources where they're like, and then Lancelot was cooking, like where they're like, no, we like that bit. No, we're not fucking. I'm not getting rid of that. You can fuck off, you know. So like, So you know, it's very funny because it is this super quick turnaround, as you say, but you can see why. So it's like it's very, very similar. It's like, what if you wanted it to be less fun and more about God? That's what the post-Vulgate does.
Thank you, priest.
Yeah,
thank you so much for that.
It's you know, medieval people.
Assholes.
There's there's no accounting for taste, right? So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so that's going to bring us to the end here, to Le Mort d'Arthur, and it was written by Sir Thomas Malory in Middle English and published in 1485. And, you know, you got, for a little over 200 years, you got the, post-Vulgate cycles, and there are a bunch of, offshoots of that and, translations and everything. A couple of new characters get added, new stories here and there, but it's mostly translations and retellings of this stuff. But, this Le Mort d'Arthur is the thing that sets... That puts all of this from like the Welsh stories in the Welsh campfire stories in the very beginning to the Historia to the cycles. It puts it all together, and you've got the complete package of Arthur from like his magical birth to his awful death, and you get the whole story and everything, and you get to find out. And there are 8 books to it, and it's the thing. It's the thing, and if you're gonna read one, I would say this is the one to read. Because it's, don't get me wrong. If you want to be a nerd like me, feel free. Like, dig around. Just like, go. And I like the side quests. I like Gawain and the Grey Knight. I like all of these things. But the filler stuff is fun.
Yeah, absolutely. But if you're saying to yourself, I want to get like a pretty good idea of Arthuriana and what it means, this is like the culmination. This is like when you really have this is Dr. Manhattan on Mars. If we're still using, the Watchmen. The Watchmen metaphor. So
is the metaphor, the only thing I could think of was the disembodied metaphor. And every time I said that, I just saw that thing, it's like, it's November or whatever. And a disembodied skeleton. Yeah, that's the only thing I could think of. Yeah,
exactly. And this is like a full-fledged guy. So, right. So, you start off in book 1, and it gives you sirens. So you start off in book 1, and it gives you the whole Uther story, right? So Uther needs an heir. He's got the hots for the wife of the Duke of Cornwall. They start a war over it. The Duke gets killed at a siege. Then Merlin casts the spell on Uther. He goes and fucks Igraine. And she doesn't even realize until later that her husband's dead. But in exchange for this, Merlin says, well, when she gets knocked up, you should give me the son. And then they end up getting married because Igraine is just like a good queen, and she's like, this will probably be best for the kingdom. Gives birth to Arthur, and Merlin sends him to be raised by a knight called Sir Ector alongside Ector's son Kay, right? So then Uther dies. Kingdom is in a terrible state. There's no king. Merlin's got a plan. He tells the Archbishop of Canterbury, I've enchanted this sword Excalibur. So Excalibur is not with the Lady in the Lake. Merlin's got Excalibur. And I'm putting it in a stone by the great church in London. And all the lords get together and they try to get the sword out. None of them can do it. Sir Ector comes to London for a big tournament on New Year's Day. Kay and Arthur are with him. Kay's just become a knight, but he forgot his sword at home. So he's like, hey, Arthur, can you go and get my sword? On the way, Arthur sees the sword in the stone and is like, oh, well, shit, I'll just grab that one. Right. And like, that'll do. So he grabs it out, no troubles, runs back. Ector realizes that that's the sword in the stone. And they return it to the stone so that Arthur can prove that he pulled it out himself, right? Everyone sees him do it, and they're like, oh, damn, Arthur's definitely supposed to be the king of England. He's crowned. But then the other kings are like, seems a bit of a weird distribution system. And so they're like, well, and because he's a king, maybe we can, like, take advantage of him, right? So Merlin is like, oh, by the way, all these guys trying to step up on your territory. And he's like, you should get the help of two kings, King Ban and King Bors. And then you can then help them fight in wars, and that'll pay the favor back. So they attack King Lot and his allies, but then like they don't rout them completely because Merlin's like, probably don't piss him off that much. But Arthur and his men then they go and like do the defeating of Ban and Bor's enemies. And while they're doing that, Arthur meets Guinevere, right? But he also sleeps with Margwaise, who's Lot's wife. He's like, he's out here cucking his enemies. And Lot is the father of Gawain and Gareth and Gaheris and Angravern. But like, Arthur doesn't realize that Margwaise is his half-sister. So she gives birth to Mordred, foreshadowing. Merlin is like, you know what? Like, this kid is gonna
fuck them kids.
He's like, fuck them kids. So he's like, you should round up every kid who was born in May, which is the month that Mordred was born, onto a ship, and then we'll shipwreck the ship. Okay. And then Arthur's like, yeah, it seems like a great idea. Let's fucking go infanticide. But like all the kids except Mordred die. And everyone is like, it seems bad that Arthur did like the kid roundup infanticide boat, and people don't like it. So Arthur's like, I'm gonna need to make some friends, so we're gonna do the round table so that maybe everyone will forget about like the infanticide incident. And lots of knights come and take a place, blah blah blah, mercy to opponents, defend ladies, blah blah blah. And Merlin kind of fades away at this point because he's in love with Nimue, the Lady of the Lake, who learns sorcery off of him, then gets bored of his dick and traps him in a cave forever. You may have heard of that one.
As you do, yeah.
And then Arthur also has to deal with Morgan Le Fay, his sister, who's also a sorceress. Like before she was really ambiguous. Well, now she's bad. Okay. And she's always trying to like trick him or like whatever. Yeah. Which brings us into book 2. And in this, Arthur is fighting wars against Western Rome. Which is, as one does. So in these...
Western Rome definitely wasn't a thing then.
Yeah.
It had been gone for a
while.
Yeah,
it had definitely been gone. It was not around, but that's fine. But at least they're like differentiating the Romes. I like that. But hey,
he's definitely not going to war with Constantinople. Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
No, like he would lose. But so basically, Emperor Lucius, not a guy, of Rome, sends messengers out to Arthur, and he's like, you should give us tribute because we're Rome. Arthur's pissed off about it, but he like takes counsel from the knights. And Sir Cawdor is like, well, hey, we could have a war and that'd be cool. The King of Wales wants to take vengeance on the Viscount of Rome, who was like rude to him once. The young Lancelot du Lac is all like, well, hey, I love war, and everyone else, gives their reasons for why they do war with Rome. So Arthur tells the envoys from Rome to get fucked, and they all leave. So they go back to Rome, and they're like, I don't know, Lucius. Arthur's got a lot of dudes. He's got several homies. But Lucius attacks anyway, and he's supported by giants and Saracens. So you see where this is going. You can see that they are bad and pagan, as opposed to Arthur and his homies who are good and Christian. So basically, he ends up taking the lands that Arthur had won off of King Claudos and in France, and he's kind of like going up through Normandy. Arthur then kind of like leaves his kingdom with Guinevere looking out for it and two other noblemen. She's all swooning with grief, but he's got to go anyway. And basically he says, well, if I die, Constantine, who is Cador's son, is going to succeed me. So, meanwhile on the ship, Arthur has a big dream about a battle between a dragon and a huge bear. His dream interpreter says the dragon represents Arthur, and the bear is like some kind of tyrant or giant that he's going to destroy. And as soon as he lands in Normandy, he hears of a giant who's like tormenting the land and murdering women and children. And he's stolen a duchess who's like Arthur's cousin's wife. And so Arthur calls Kay and Bedivere, and they're like, regulators mount up. They go to Mont Saint-Michel, where marvels are showed, and they slay the giant. And so, that's they were at the army, they slay the giant, everything that you would expect to happen. It's real boys' boy.
Yeah. And that brings us to, book 3.
The Adventures of Lancelot. And oh my God, there's so many of them. I literally sat here and typed them all out. And I don't know, if we really, there's so much. He comes, suffice to say, he comes back from Rome. He was doing the best at this. Everyone is like, wow, he's the very best. There are some kind of light B&D scenes where he gets tied up and beaten with thorns.
Ooh.
Yeah. One time he falls asleep under a tree, and Morgan Le Fay and 3 of her ladies show up and fall in love with him and talk about how hot he is. That's a good one. There are damsels, there are monsters, there he goes to Tintagel and saves maidens. There's a lot of making fun of Kay. Surprise. He follows a hunting dog through a forest and basically saves intervenes with a dead knight who's still grieving for his lady. Everything that you would expect to see, and it goes on. And eventually he comes back to Camelot, and when he gets there, he is kind of Lancelot kind of has encountered a knight who was going to kill his wife because he's jealous of her. And he's like, please don't kill your wife. The husband kills her anyway. And Lancelot is like, you're going back to Camelot. And Guinevere is going to give you a penance. And so we're going back and doing this. And then he shows back up at Camelot, and it's Pentecost. And everyone sits around and talks about how Lancelot's the greatest knight in the whole world. And they just sit around telling stories. Which is how you then start getting into the other books. So the book 4 is Sir Gareth. And similarly, it's Pentecost. And the Knights of the Round Table are like, okay, so let me tell you what I did this year. It's like what I did on my all-year vacation, right? And Sir Gareth's story is that an unknown squire kind of showed up to court to prove himself, and he's dressed shabbily. No one knows who he is. So Arthur is like, well, you can help in the kitchen, I guess. Kay, of course, acts like a dick and is calling him Fair Hands or Beaumont.
Ooh,
got his ass. And the other knights are like, come on, Kay, stop being a dick. But anyway, a damsel, Linnae, comes to court and asks for a knight to rescue her sister, Lyonesse, from the Knight of the Red Lawns. Beaumont asks if he can do it. So, and everyone was like, sure, let the kid who's in the kitchen go out. Why not? Seems fine.
Yeah.
So he goes out. Lancelot kind of goes after him, and he's like, "Hey, Lancelot, can you make me a knight?" And then he's like, "Oh, I am not Lancelot. I'm Gareth of Orkney, the brother of Sir Gawain." And Lancelot is like, "Oh, word. Okay, yeah, fair enough. Here you go. You're a knight." But no one else knows who Gareth is and like what his true identity is. And Linnaea the whole time is like, "You are still dressed shitty." and not being very noble indeed, even though Gareth like kicks the asses of a bunch of knights on the way. Eventually he defeats the Knight of the Redlands and he wins Lyonesse. And then after he proves himself at Pentecost, jousting, they have a joust. Then Linnaea is all like, maybe I will get off your dick and you can sleep with my sister, and they get married in the end. And see, this is the thing, okay? It's very funny when you read this book, because it's like the Sir Gareth story, it's like very self-contained, where you're like, yeah, like the Lancelot one, pretty long, but you know, whatever, we'll get through it.
Yeah.
Sir Gareth in book 4, yeah, okay, self-contained. This is what you'd expect in a Knight of the Round Table story. And then Tristan.
And then Tristan and Isolde. You get it's been written before, but this is like where it really gets incorporated.
Oh my god, this is so fucking long. So I've like tried my best here. So Tristan is the son of King Meliodas. His stepmother tries to poison him because she's jealous. And Tristan forgives her. So, you know, he's a nice and honorable knight. But his father sends him out of the country because he's like, I don't know, man, like your stepmother's wilding out. Eventually he grows up and proves himself by defending King Mark of Cornwall against the Irish King Anguish. And he also fights a Knight of the Round Table named Marhaus. So he wins, but he's wounded, and King Anguish's family takes care of him without realizing that he's the one who was like fighting against him. He falls in love with the king's daughter, La Belle Isolde. And after a while, Isolde's mother is like, oh, we know who you are. And that when the king realized that Tristan like had to defend King Mark for honorable reasons, he's like, well, I'm not going to kill you, homie, but you're going to have to leave my court, even though you do seem to want to bang my daughter. So Tristan goes back to King Mark's court, and they both fall in love with Isolde. And Isolde is in love with Tristan. So Mark is super, super jealous, and he's like, well, I'm going to plot Tristan's downfall. And he's like, okay, well, I'm going to order Tristan to fight and win Isolde, but for me, and that'll like humiliate him. So, but because he is good and like loyal, Tristan does that, even though he and Isolde are still in love with each other. One of Mark's knights eventually tells the king that they are in love, and so he locks Isolde up in a tower. Tristan then kind of like escapes and runs away to King Howell's lands. He briefly falls in love and marries another woman, the other Isolde. Remember the other Isolde? Yeah. And he ends up kind of leaving her, and he meets up with one of Arthur's knights, Lamorak de Galie, and they defeat like some tyrants, right? Meanwhile, back at court, Arthur's got another unknown knight, Brenoir Lenoir, and he comes to court and honestly wants to prove himself. He's made a Knight of the Round Table. And a number of the Round Table knights meet and joust with Tristan, right? And he resists being made a Knight of the Round Table because he's like, oh, I'm not worthy. Oh, no. And anyway, Lancelot knew that Tristan was banging Isolde behind King Mark's back and is angry with him, which seems a little rich, but whatever. So anyway, like Tristan then kind of like sneaks back to Mark's court, but then like they're like, oh, are you here to bang the queen? And he's like, no. Anyway,
no, never.
He has a fight with Isolde. He runs off to the forest. He loses his sanity for a while. Eventually he comes back to court where everyone's like, hey, look at this crazy guy. And, but Isolde recognized him, and Once he is revealed, Mark banishes him again. So it's quite funny. They're like, bring this crazy guy out of the woods. Oh shit, that's Tristan. Send this crazy guy back to the woods. Okay. So Tristan then proves himself on the battlefield in varying tournaments that Arthur is putting on. He's made a Knight of the Round Table. King Mark hears about this and is furious. So he sneaks into England, like after killing 2 of his knights who are like, no, I'm not going to help you kill Tristan. A few of the Knights of the Round Table then run into Mark, even though he's hiding his identity. And one of them, Dinadan, figures out who he is and brings him to Arthur. And Arthur is like, you need to swear that you are going to leave Tristan alone. And Mark swears that he will and brings Tristan back to court with him. At the same time, Gawain and his brothers lose out at a tournament to Lamorak. Then, because they are jealous, they kill their mother Margwise, who is Lamorak's lover, and eventually Lamorak too, which seems bad.
Yeah.
So back at Mark's court, Mark asks Tristram to help him defeat some enemies, and it's like, okay, yeah, Mark's brother's in it too. We're all going to go defeat some enemies, right? But then, because Mark's brother is also defeating enemies, well, Mark gets jealous and kills him. And like his sister-in-law and son Alexander then escape from the evil Mark. Mark, meanwhile, is also continuing to plot against Tristan, despite what he said he was going to do for Arthur. But Lancelot is back, and he's like, oh, who amongst us hasn't fucked a married lady? Whatever. It's all water under the bridge. And they managed to lock Mark up for a while and imprison him. So at this time, finally, Tristan can go have fun. He teams up with a bunch of other knights like Gareth and Palamedes and Dinadan, and they have a number of quests. But then Palamedes also falls in love with Isolde. And after Tristan kind of like wins a bit of a tournament, Palamedes gets really sick with jealousy, and they decide to fight for their honor. And in said fight, Tristram is so wounded that he can't battle against Palamedes. Meanwhile, Lancelot, who's been fucking Guinevere this whole time, all right, gets tricked into sleeping with Elaine of Corbin, who then gives birth to Galahad, right? And then Galahad is the knight that's going to be better than Lancelot. So that's the fastest way that I can do the Tristan. Boy, howdy, it goes on. Woo doggy.
Yeah, they picked that one up, and they were like, yeah, you know, we talked about Sir Gareth, and that's kind of a new one, you know, right here. And then they picked up Tristan and Isolde, and they were like, yeah, Sir Gareth, whatever. We're giving you the whole thing on these guys. We're just half the book, yeah. So yeah,
which, you know, I guess it kind of makes sense because this is sort of like setting up for how you get a Galahad, but it's like, but that's Lancelot, not. But okay, whatever, dude, whatever. But and like book 6, which is the quest for the Grail, is very long, but you would kind of expect that. You expect that a bit more, right? Yeah. So quest for the Grail again. So like Galahad arrives at court. Would you believe that he is not sharing his identity?
No. I would
yeah, it's wild. It's wild. But basically, it becomes very, very clear that he's super, super holy guy. He pulls a different sword out of a different enchanted stone, right? They're everywhere. You can't move in Camelot for swords and stones. And then everyone is like, oh, shit. Well, that means that it's time to start the quest for the Sangreal, the Holy Grail, right? And the Sangreal at this point can grant limitless food and drink. And it can also reveal spiritual mysteries, but only if you're holy enough, right? So Arthur's sad that so many of his knights are going to go on the quest, but, you know, and mostly because he's like, because I know all you sons of bitches are fucking people's wives. So, like, including mine own, and like, no one's going to be able to get the Grail, right? Then we have adventures. I'm just not going to go into them. Okay, look, there are adventures. There several castles are freed. Several evil knights are defended. Very many damsels are freed. Meanwhile, Percival another knight who's on the quest is trying to find Galahad, but he has his own quests, which usually involve temptations, right? And he's got to like kind of battle with like the devil being a sexy lady and things like this, right?
Yeah.
You know, typical stuff, right? Lancelot is also confronted with the temptations. And even though he's good at battling, he basically gets told by a number of characters, yeah, but you do be fucking Guinevere. And also you're too proud. So you're not going to find the Grail probably because of all of the adultery. Right. Same time, Sir Bors is having a number of spiritual tests. He has to choose between saving a lady and saving his brother Lionel. He says, fuck you, Lionel, chooses the lady. Which shows knightly honor. But Lionel gets real mad about it, gets possessed by the devil, and tries to kill him. But Bors manages to run off and join Percival. They then meet up with and team up with Galahad, and there are more adventures. And then they run into Percival's sister, who is on an enchanted ship where there's a sword and a scabbard that are invested with holiness because they are connected to Joseph of Arimathea. Right, the Garden of the Holy Grail. So it turns out that Galahad is fated to take the sword and the scabbard, which is super convenient. So he's like, great, I'll take that. And eventually the three knights get to the castle of the maimed King Pelham. And there Galahad heals the king, which fulfills a prophecy. But another king then throws them in prison. But the Holy Grail ensures that they have like food and are healthy, so it doesn't matter. And then eventually, when the king dies, Galahad is made king of the land. And at the same time, Galahad is finally granted the right to see the spiritual mysteries of the Holy Grail and gets raised into heaven.
Yeah,
which is nice for
bodily
him.
ascension. That's
go. That's fucking right, bro.
Enoch.
Yeah. Eat it. It's like
the other one and Galahad.
Yep.
I forget the other one.
And Mary eventually. Yeah, I think.
And Mary, yes, I'm sorry.
Enoch and Elias.
That one doesn't apply to me because I was Protestant. But
yeah, it's Enoch and Elias.
Elias.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you. Yeah.
So so he gets to go into heaven, which is cool. Percival then just becomes a holy man and dies long after, love and life. And Bors goes back to Arthur's court and finds out that a lot of the original knights from the Round Table are dead. And he's like, well, me and all my friends were out eating food out of the Holy Grail. It changed our whole perspective on shit. You know, so like...
yeah. I went to Europe last summer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I learned
basically. Yeah.
So yeah, book 7, the penultimate one, Lancelot and Guinevere.
Well, so we're back at court, and Lancelot is like, remember when I said I was going to become holier so that I could help find the Grail? No, I'm going to keep fucking Guinevere. So that's cool. So this night, Pinel decides that he's going to poison Gawain out of jealousy at a feast that Guinevere is holding. And instead, he accidentally kills a knight called Patrice. But everyone thinks that Guinevere killed Patrice. And so Lancelot is like, all right, well, I'm going to have to defend her against Pinel. There are several tournaments as a result. Lancelot wins them all. At one point, he stays with a lord called Bernard and his daughter, Elaine LeBlanc. She falls in love with him, obviously. But Lancelot is like, I must be loyal to my boss's wife.
to my capo.
Yeah. Guinevere. And Elaine dies out of grief, which is sad. There's another big tournament. There's a little bit of peace in the kingdom. But then soon, a knight called Meleagance decides to take advantage of the fact that Lancelot's been away, and he kidnaps Guinevere because he's in love with Guinevere. Lancelot is like, oh no, my side piece. Well, I guess he's her main one, and he's her side piece. But anyway, so he's like, well, I'm going to go get her. He gets captured, thrown into prison. But a damsel intervenes. He escapes. He kills Meleagance in battle. Great. But then another night, Agravain is jealous of Lancelot and decides that he's going to do a plot against him. And so basically everyone at court knows that Lancelot and Guinevere are banging, except Arthur. And Agravain basically is like, Arthur, everyone knows that Lancelot and Guinevere are banging, and he proves it by showing Arthur like he surrounds Guinevere and Lancelot in bed together one night, and Arthur's like, oh damn, my wife. Anyway, like
Whoa, who could have seen
yeah,
this?
whoa, this is completely unexpected. So anyway, Lancelot just dips, like just fully is like yoink, like out the door. But Guinevere gets sentenced to death. But Lancelot then like rides in, rescues her. They were going to burn her at the stake. But then in the mayhem, he accidentally kills Gareth and Gaheris. And then Gawain, who is their brother and has always been loyal to Lancelot, is like, this is the last straw. You can't just like bang I've supported you when you were banging the boss's wife, but if you're going to kill my brothers to keep this going, I'm not down. So he's like, I'm going to destroy Lancelot, right?
Yep. That brings us to the end. The death of the king.
Rip.
Book 8. Yep, rip.
So basically Arthur's like, damn, looks like we're going to have to kill my best friend. And at this point, Lancelot has taken Guinevere to his private tower, and he's like, you should probably go back. But hopefully they won't kill her. Because he's like, I don't want to do civil war. I just wanted to bang you and you did not get burned at the stake. But Gawain is like, no, I'm sorry. You killed my brothers and I'm not going to be happy until your ass is dead. So Lancelot runs away to Benwick with a couple of knights who are loyal to him. And Gawain and Arthur lay siege to them there while they're fighting. Mordred then hears that Arthur had died in battle. And he's like, oh, well, shit, I guess I'm king now. And I'm going to marry Guinevere. And then he finds out that Arthur is not, in fact, dead and is alive. And he's like, yeah, no, I'm still married to your wife now. And I am still the king. So Arthur and Gawain have to like go back, and Gawain gets mortally wounded, and on his deathbed he's like, tell Lancelot I forgive him and I'm sorry that we started this war. Arthur gets told to sign a truce with Mordred until Lancelot can return and help fight them, but at the last minute there's an accident, which means that the truce is made null, and Arthur and Mordred mortally wound each other. It's at that point that Lancelot returns, but it's too late. Guinevere then retires to a nunnery, and a bunch of the other knights like become holy men or hermits because they just can't handle it anymore. And the new king Constantine is crowned, and that's it. That's the round table done. Everyone turns to the religious life.
Yep. They realize that that fucking your boss's wife is not the way you should do things, and they all go to live as hermits. And, and Britain falls into, hundreds and hundreds of years of rule by, the French and the Danes, I guess.
My favorite bit of this, though, is how it's like, Guinevere is like, no, I'm sorry, I'm only interested in it if it's cucking.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not sticking around if...
if he's dead, I'm out.
Yeah.
She's
it's like, you could marry Lancelot now. No, thank you.
You could marry Lancelot now. You could marry anyone else. You could, become, a dowager of some. Nope, fuck it. Go into a nunnery.
Bye. It's like.
Yep. Going to find some women who can do the same thing, I guess. Oh man. So that is our series on Arthuriana, and we hope you liked it. It's a
lot.
It's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot. There's a lot of canon there. They built out a whole lot of it. It's really wild how they did this without, modern technology of any kind.
Yeah.
It's really crazy how that happens. And we hope you enjoyed it. Eleanor, do you have any further final thoughts on the whole medieval Arthuriana?
I think that it's, one of the things why we wanted to do this series and why it's worthwhile is it is really interesting seeing how a series can kind of grow like this, and how, it goes from, as you said, Luke, like campfire stories about a boar to like, here's this whole fully fledged world, and, like they introduce a grail and it's like, what's a grail? I don't know. And then it's like, oh, it's the instrument of the Last Supper. You get all of like this myth and legend and everything that builds on and builds on and builds on. But if what you are really looking for is the story, do Le Mort d'Arthur, because that gives you the most. But I guess the way to approach it is, think of these things as reboots. think about these things
Yeah.
as always being kind of constantly in flux and for people to build on, and, you know, does what it says in the title of our show. We're not so different. Homies like to do fanfic. They like to mix it up. They like to do versions that emphasize different things. They introduce new characters. You know, they'll do crossovers. They don't care. They just go for it.
They'll get a random guy from the Bible, just pull him out of nowhere. There he is. He's been in Britain the whole time. You're like, isn't he like 1,000? Shut up. Shut the fuck up.
God damn it.
Hey, no one asked
Look,
you.
he's holy.
No one.
He's got the Grail.
He can live a long time. Yeah, it's the Grail. Shut up.
Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, he's got to stay there at least until Indiana Jones shows up. Yeah. So, you know, thank you so much for listening. Next time, I think we have an interview next week, and then after that, who knows? We'll see what the future takes. Where the future takes us. But yeah, on Friday. Bonus episode on Castlevania Nocturne's coming. Woo! So yeah, check that out. Join the Patreon if you aren't already subscribed. But yeah, Eleanor, what else you got going on right now?
Going on right now, you know, just the usual. I'm on the socials at Going Medieval. Maybe I'll find time to write something this month. If you want to hear me be a formal bitch, you can check me out over at Gone Medieval. Otherwise, the blog is going-medieval.com. And yeah, pre-orders are open for the Once and Future Sex in paperback. So if you could buy that, that would make my life easier. Thank you.
Yeah. And yeah, Luke is amazing on the stuff, and you can find A People's History of the Old Republic wherever you're listening to this. Yeah, that's going to do it for us, though. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.